I'm Shalini from the Singapore College of Insurance. Welcome to The Risk Factor. It's a podcast by the Singapore College of Insurance where we explore trends, transformations, and trailblazers shaping the future of insurance across Asia. In today's episode, the title of today's episode is The Story Behind How Singapore Evolved into Asia's Specialty Insurance Leader. And in 2024 alone, just to give you a little bit of a background, Singapore recorded 10.8 billion in gross written premiums with offshore and specialty lines such as marine, energy, cyber, and aviation, which continue to drive much of the sector's growth. Now, it is also home to 16 of the world's top 25 reinsurers, solidifying its global position in specialty risk underwriting. Now, this kind of transformation didn't happen overnight. It's a result of bold policy and strategic moves, talent development, and a regulatory environment that spurred innovation. Now, to unpack this journey, I'm joined by two senior industry leaders with deep experience navigating and contributing to the evolution of Asia's specialty insurance landscape. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our speakers today. Let me kick off with Mr. Ronak Shah. He's the CEO of Wholesale Markets Asia, as well as CEO of Singapore for QBE Insurance. Over 20 years of experience in underwriting, broking, and strategic leadership across Asia, the Pacific, and Latin America. Ronak also serves as the president of the General Insurance Association of Singapore and sits on several key industry boards, including the Singapore College of Insurance and on the Council for the Institute of Banking and Finance, Singapore. Welcome, Ronak. Thank you for making time. Joining Ronak is the fashionable, can I just say that? The fashionable and ever glamorous Mr. Aaron Yip, who is the Chief Executive of Singapore Branch and Chief Underwriting Officer for Asia at Berkley Insurance Asia. He has over 30 years of experience in the insurance industry. Aaron has held various leadership positions across Asia, and he played a pivotal role in establishing Berkley Insurance Asia's operations in Hong Kong and now leads their growth across the region from Singapore. I think we were just having this conversation earlier. Welcome, Aaron. Thank you for making time. You brought your hair, you brought your looks, you brought everything. A great match. Okay, Ronak looking very formal, dress up Monday. Aaron's doing dress down Monday. Only thing missing is some nice cocktails. I apologize. We'll do that the next round. But thank you for joining us. And Singaporeans really invested in the growth story for Singapore, wanting to see the development of the Singapore market. I think that's one of the reasons why the two of you all were chosen, how passionate you are about this market and about attracting talent and developing talent and the market. And it's really wonderful to have you here. We're just going to kick off with the first question. I think the first question, again, Singapore's rise in financial lines. Ronak, you've seen firsthand how Singapore's insurance sector has evolved from a traditional lines into a more sort of like a regional powerhouse for complex risks. Let's start at the beginning, right? What would you say were those, shifts that happened that really put Singapore in the path to be a specialty leader? What would that be?
Thank you, Shalini, and really, again, delighted to be here alongside Aaron. And indeed, talking about a topic that actually is at the heart of, why we serve the industry, why we're in it, something that we've been talking about for decades, actually. So thank you again. Singapore's story in the world of specialty insurance is not a new one. It's been there for a long time. Singapore, as is with many other industries, doesn't approach everything with a single brush. It's not a broad brush approach. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. It has always been a very carefully crafted approach and strategy towards addressing any point, right? So in the world of specialty insurance, it has been an intentional strategy from Singapore's standpoint, something where it came about on the basis of deliberate policymaking, having a vision which was 20 years, 30 years down the road, really governed, supported, and developed, and in fact encouraged by a regulator that is very pro-business, the Monetary Authority of Singapore that really governs the insurance industry. It has always been an approach where it is about listening to each other. It is about collaborating. And I'll give you an example. When I came back to Singapore from the US in 2005, I remember one of the first engagements that I had with the MAS was to kind of really look at the Bermudan market and see what kind of specialty carriers that were there and ones that we could actually invite and attract to set up here in Singapore.
In 2005?
And this was in 2000. This is 20 years ago.
Okay.
So, and I can only imagine that thought process that they had back then would have culminated from something far earlier than that, right?
Yes.
So it really started off with a very proactive regulator. So that's my first point. It also helped the industry that we had Lloyd's Asia set up here in Singapore and really use Singapore as its foundation for the rest of Asia as well. And the whole concept of Lloyd's really jumpstarts the concept of specialty insurance.
Exactly.
That's their hallmark. And having specialist underwriters, having the products, the innovation that the Lloyd's market brings to the industry, that really allowed our ecosystem to start and in fact thrive from there. I think, as is with many other aspects of how Singapore drives its value proposition, it is not about scale. It is about doing something the right way and doing it well.
Okay.
And so that's also representative of our insurance industry and our specialist insurance industry. It is about, yes, if we get the volume, brilliant. But I think what kickstarts the approach is always about doing something well and being seen as the best at it. That's really one of the angles in which Singapore wanted to kickstart its specialist story. Now, again, something that very much applies to the insurance industry, but would probably apply to many other industries, is the infrastructure that enables this. So when you look at the legal climate, when you look at the efficiency across tech structures here for businesses, when you look at the ability to access capital through the markets here, even though this bit where it's a work in progress, but a talent pool in which we could tap on, foreign trained individuals and Singaporeans who have come back to Singapore as well, and even back then as well. These were all things that kind of came together and really allowed us to build on and expand on the industry from there. Now, just two other points from my end. One would be an ecosystem that also allowed the industry to thrive. So it's not just about insurers or reinsurers, but it's also about intermediaries, brokers, it's about adjusters, it's about the concept of managing general agents, and I guess more recent times, insurtechs as well, right? So if you look at this and you call it an ecosystem, that has also allowed us to really take this industry to the next level. And finally, this is an important point. Insurance is not seen as a by the way type of industry here. With the help of the regulator and very importantly with the support of the government as a whole, insurance is very much in the thick of our financial services industry. It is seen as a very critical component of our economy and probably is one of three pillars of our financial services system, right? So you've got the commercial banks, you've got your asset management companies, and then you have insurance. So it's a very important part. So I guess this is, in my opinion, some of the points that kind of led to specialty insurance being a big thing here.
Very good. Aaron, over to you. You've led across various different markets and you've seen how things are and what things are like, how Singapore is today. And from your vantage point, right, what do you see, your view of what those turning points are, whether it's policy, whether it's mindset, whether it's market forces, what is it that shaped Singapore's position today?
Yeah, I just want to add on, really what Ronak talked about, which was some of the policy shifts, the environment, the infrastructure, the talent, the foreign direct investment that happened in Singapore. And I just want to put that into sort of the context because something happened in 1997 that kickstarted really the risk awareness of this entire region. And that was the Asian financial crisis. And so none of what we do matters unless there is a demand for our products and services and an awareness of that. We have to do some education. There needs to be policy shifts. There needs to be the right tax environment, the right incentives for companies to open. But I would say, and Ronak, you may remember that, before 1997, it was very difficult to get boardrooms really to think about risk in the way that we do, right?
Okay.
You think about it. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, the Asian tigers were there. It was about growth, making money. But, post 97, there was something called man-made disasters, and that was financial crisis.
Right.
And it really, happened in our region. And so when we were able to go there with our products and services, I think the mindset was, we want to hear what you guys have to say, because we've seen it. We've seen bank failures.
That's true.
We've seen bailouts.
Which you would never have thought about.
Directors getting into trouble, right? And so at that point, a door opened. And I think the smart thing that, obviously Singaporean policymakers saw, this is an opportunity for us to build out a runway of leading the risk industry that adds to the financial institution. So I think that, just going back to why did all of this happen, the pivotal, you asked the question, what were the pivotal moments? To me, 1997 and the Asian financial crisis was a very pivotal moment for mindsets, for policy shifts, for foreign direct investments, and for boards to suddenly think of risk in a very different context. And we were able to have some of those conversations. And it wasn't just providers of the product. The whole industry, the whole ecosystem came around.
Okay.
You have Lloyd's, you talked about, you have underwriters, you have educational institutions, you have insurance brokers and advisors and consultants, claims professionals, actuaries, all of that suddenly came together to kind of kickstart the specialty insurance that you're kind of referring to. But, as a separate to that kind of specialty insurance, Singapore was already quite big on marine insurance, marine, hull insurance, construction, because obviously in the 80s and 90s, there was that kind of insurance, but very property related, very tangible related. But my point about the specialty insurance that I think you want to unpack today is the growth of, say, liability insurance, which I think is the second largest sort of category of the general insurance, premiums in Singapore after marine and hull and that type of insurance. So I think, that's certainly a pivotal moment that I think happened that created the opportunities for us to even have this conversation.
Very good. Okay, all right. So let's go deeper, okay? We talked about policy, we talked about the Asian financial crisis, and I think, Aaron, would you say that every financial crisis you see some new shifts, like the sands shift a little, you start to see, do you think that happens every time? Would that be so? Because insurance is really about that creating sort of like that safety blanket for you, right? So, and these crises, in a way, shake you up. So I wonder whether these crises, you would see it as a good thing in a way for insurance, because it suddenly wakes you up to, hey, I'm not protected for this, or I'm not protected for that.
I think with every crisis, there is an opportunity to have a conversation about risk that you could not have beforehand.
Okay.
So in the first financial crisis that, I sort of grew into in my career, bankers' blanket bond for financial institutions was probably top of mind. Insurance relating to trading, securities, stockbrokers. So because that financial crisis was essentially a financial crisis for banks and currencies and corporate debt. But then what happened after the financial crisis, you had the global financial crisis, and that was a slightly different type of crisis. But during those sort of 15 to 20 years from 1997 or 2000, I think something like 40% of global IPOs happened within the Asia region. And that provided an opportunity for the growth of other lines of business that hitherto was not in any demand. So suddenly boardrooms started talking about, the roles, the functions, the duties, the responsibilities of directors. Corporate governance was a huge topic, in the years after the financial crisis, leading up to the global financial crisis. And so that allowed us, I think, as an industry to offer solutions and products that took care of those risk concerns at the boardroom level. I don't think you could have done it earlier. So I think the mindset was very important, in that way.
And let's look at the policy landscape, right? So MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, liberalized the market in the 2000s, including the lifting of the foreign ownership limits. We saw offshore business take off with non-life and offshore premiums rising sharply. Now, Ronak, just your point, and I think segueing in from Aaron's point, what do you see as being the change that happened, or how that evolved?
Yeah, I think so. Aaron's made some really valid points and I think to your earlier point, Shalini, just want to expand a little bit on it before I address the question. Every crisis, I agree, definitely leads to, some tweaks and sometimes even a complete shift in policy. And in that comes a different approach towards risk. Corporates tend to look at things very differently. You're seeing now shifts in geopolitical risks happen sometimes even by the month. And in all of these instances, if you look at where Asia has kind of come over the past 20 years or so, the economic boom that Asia has kind of driven and very much is still seen as the growth engine of the world has driven the need for, whether it's infrastructure spending that's increased, whether it is marine shipbuilding, or whether it is aviation, or whether, if you look at a lot of the complexities that come along with building countries, cities, expanding economies, the need for risk protection comes along with it. Helped by the fact that we had the lifting in the cap, the ownership cap, you've had a complete influx of expertise and experience coming in the form of foreign talent into a country like Singapore, which has really helped the Singapore core build itself as well. And so I see it as a big shift, right? So the economic boom, coupled with the fact that now large global multinationals could effectively own 100% of a business here in Singapore, bringing in it with it the talent that came along with it. You had regional headquarters set up here. You had programs which were previously monoline, single country type programs become regional plays. You had private public partnerships set up. You had Singapore become a wealth management hub, which then came along with the lending that goes along with it. And again, the risk protection that comes along with it. Aaron made the point about corporate governance really maturing in the process. You have international boards coming here. So again, the approach towards risk really matured. And with that, how we define as the purchase or the transaction, or in fact, putting into play specialty insurance and Singapore as a hub supporting that, it just matured. So, I see that definitely as a big catalyst. You then, of course, I think we have to at the same time underpin the fact that all of this was enabled by Singapore being nimble, the regulatory landscape being nimble, the government being pro-business and proactive in trying to adapt to a shifting landscape all the time, and constantly going back to the fundamentals as to it being a bit more of a long-term view, right? So with all of these things into play, it just allowed the entire ecosystem to thrive. And these days, we don't look at things with a 10-year, 15-year horizon. I think sometimes we need to kind of couple that with what's out there over the next 3 to 5 years as well. So I do feel the agility of Singapore as a country. And look, it's always a learning process and a work in progress. But, we do have to address and recognize the fact that Singapore, more than probably any other country here in Asia, has been very forward-thinking, forward-looking, and creative in how it addresses things.
Very true.
I think, just to add on to Ronak, I think we're all very clear that the risk environment today, whether it's 10 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, it's not diluting.
True.
It's not getting less. I think we can all agree that, when we wake up the next day, we don't know who's going to do a press briefing about what's happening. And frankly, it's not, we think of risk as natural catastrophes, earthquakes and volcanoes and plane crashes. But the risk that probably doesn't get categorized as a sort of a natural catastrophe are these man-made catastrophes.
Yep.
Think cyber, for example.
Okay.
Just a few days ago,
that APT, what was it?
Exactly. Advanced, persistent threats.
Yeah.
So we don't know when we wake up the next morning what headlines are we going to see.
Yep.
So I think to Ronak's point, the evolution, the innovation, the agility of this industry to work with business partners, to work with educators, to work with policymakers on helping to address, to get the right data, to get the right information, to get the right analysis, so that the industry can have a fighting chance to respond to some of these emerging threats, and even threats that we don't even know that's going to happen the next day. So I find it such an interesting industry, such an interesting career, because the answers, the rules are not written.
True.
Right?
It's evolving.
It's evolving, and you do need the brightest and the bravest to come in and try and figure out some of these things.
It's a very valid point.
I know, and I suddenly thought of something. If you, I like to watch a lot of legal based movies and drama. If you watch A Few Good Men, remember when Jack Nicholson? He's talking about you get to sleep at night because I'm standing and guarding the wall.
That's right.
That's what you guys are, right?
Well, I think it's in partnership.
Right? Yeah.
It's in partnership, right? You need the right mindsets, you need the right risk leaders, the right CEOs at board levels to say, this is important because I need to protect shareholders, I need to protect customers, employees, and my suppliers and my ecosystem. And look, insurance is just a part of that. But I think we are a very valid part, and I hope that we can get that message to a broader audience, particularly students. If you're studying finance, economics, geography, history, there is a risk element there.
You're so right, and I think we had a session, I wasn't with poly students. I think we had a session with poly students, I think for some case competition. And we were just talking about insurance is such an inclusive industry. We welcome everyone, right?
Yes.
So, whether you were learning veterinary science, we insure pets, animals, we want you, doctors, we want you. We want everybody, right? Yeah. And I think that's what makes the industry so different. And most people don't realize there's an insurance element to everything from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. Yeah. Every part of your journey, whether professionally, personally, whatever, you fly, you drive, there's an insurance element that's silently protecting you and shielding the family. And that's something that I think people very often don't realize. Yeah.
And it's fun. It's not that, the kind of perception that the industry used to give. I think it's changed. It is pleasing to see a lot of, people who are very much in their early stages of their career choose insurance. And if we kind of bring it down to really the complex commercial and general insurance landscape, we are seeing a lot of curious minds come in. They love the concept of specialty insurance. I think,
do you see career switches, Aaron, coming into specialty?
I have seen.
Ronak,
I have.
Do you?
Yeah, we have one underwriter that came in from the auditing world, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And the reason he came into our world is because he actually audited us. And so he had a window into our industry and decided, hey, this might be something interesting. Plus, he probably thought, the people working there were fun and fashionable as well. So that probably helped.
God. Are you talking about yourself? Okay, I think he is talking about it. How about you, Ronak? Have you seen anyone coming?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we, depending on the specialism. So, for example, we actually have seen a number of mariners join the industry. So it's not about having background in insurance.
Okay.
We've seen a number of bankers, we've seen a number of finance professionals join, whether it's the financial lines industry, whether it's the mergers and acquisitions part of the business, in aviation as well. So I think, depending on the specialism, the good thing now is that you don't have a generalist that is training to, again, you would have also instances where it's somebody who's may not have come from that industry, but who has trained and who has had the experience over years of trading in that space, become a specialist. But at the same time now, more recent times, you are seeing people who've been trained in that space. We've also had mid-career switches. So for example, We've had people who've done 20, 30 years in that particular industry come in and join us within, whether it's in the world of marine insurance or in the world of, say, construction and engineering, for example. We've had multiple engineers come and join us after spending the earlier part of their career doing something else. So it's very pleasing.
But do you see young people also wanting to come into specialty lines?
We've had a lot of questions. And yes, we've had, today, for example, being a bit biased towards the specialty insurance industry, if you give somebody a choice, more often than not, they will say, I actually would like to experience the specialty space.
I see.
More than, say, some of the others. I won't name the other classes, but if you kind of name the specialisms, a lot of times we get a lot of curiosity and plenty of people keen to join.
Very good.
Yeah. I think we can certainly do a lot more to reach out to young folks who have an interest, but we have to be realistic as well. Ronak and I have been doing this for decades, and we also didn't know what specialty insurance was when we started, but it was people. It was people within the industry that learned about it, that shared it with us, that mentored us, who gave us the opportunity to peek behind the door. I can certainly list out a few names, Aruno, Sashi, Alex, my very first boss in the industry. They gave us an opportunity to learn this industry. And I think we're also trying to pay it forward to say, but back then we didn't have podcasts, to explain what specialty insurance was. Today, I think for a lot of the younger cohorts that are coming in, they are able to chat GPT everything.
That's
so
true.
we are able, I think, to reach out to a broader community and say, hey, have a look at this, because frankly, the people who join this industry and join the specialty area, they never leave.
Oh, really?
They never leave. They build a career, they build their reputation, their expertise, and there's so many slices within this industry that you can really make a career. But I think for a lot of young folks, why they want to consider this, it's because there's a lot of agency and a lot of purpose as well.
Yeah.
This is something that you get to look at the risk and decide how to price it, how to craft the contract, how to have conversations around it, and help people mitigate some very real risk.
It's a very sophisticated business as well, right?
Yeah. Just the additional point I'd like to make about how the industry is also kind of evolved. And to a huge extent, it's not just about the past that led to this. It's also about the current that continues to drive it and make it even better, right? So number one, there are plenty of experts and thought leaders who lend their time and volunteer to contribute in terms of speaking at events and seminars, panel sessions. You've moderated so many of those as well. You have the Singapore College of Insurance, which is gaining a lot more ground in bringing the concept of specialty education into all of this. We must not forget the fact that the government and the regulator have been proactive in funding a lot of the education initiatives, and whether it's mid-career switches, whether it's subsidies towards that, whether it is courses that one would like to take, and if you're a Singaporean, you can get subsidies for that as well. So there are many different angles in which you can enable and augment your approach towards the journey of learning specialty insurance, right? And so I think these are very important points that enable this whole ecosystem that we call it in the world of specialty insurance to continue. I think it's very, very important.
Very good. Let's talk about market perceptions. I think we've been talking about talent, and market perceptions really does shift or in a way influence whether or not people want to come in, people want to join the industry. Now, Singapore is no longer just a good regional base. It's become the go-to market that risks that once used to go to London or used to go to New York. Now, what type of risks? I think, Aaron, this question is for you. What type of risks are you seeing being placed through Singapore that, say, 10 years ago, they would never even have thought about coming to Singapore? What are those? What's driving that shift?
So I have a sort of a take on this, and I know why you asked the question. London, New York, Singapore, even Hong Kong, right?
Yes.
Japan, China. These are all very significant insurance centers. I kind of think of this not as a or question.
Either or, okay.
Either or. Is it Singapore or London, New York? I think of this as an and question. And the great thing is Singapore is now very much in the formula. It's Lloyd's and Singapore.
Yeah. Okay.
We're still about 10% maybe of, the total Lloyd's market. Okay. So, we have to be realistic. But I think out of that 10%, there is relevance. There is expertise. There are relationships. There are risks that does find its place in Singapore because we are no longer the kind of market that we were, 20 years ago, even 30 years ago. This is an innovation center. It's a lab. It's a hub. HQs are here. People are here. Relationships are here. Expertise is here. So we have a voice. We have agency here. And I think the opportunity is maybe the question is, how does Singapore continuously raise its game such that it is very much, adding value to the Asian risk story with London, with New York, with Japan, with Hong Kong, with China, because, ASEAN together with China, Korea, and Japan, we're 6 times the size that we were, 20 years ago. So there is a lot of risk, a lot of capital, a lot of M&A, a lot of IPO, and I think, we have definitely a role to play in the future story of Singapore's specialty runway.
Building on your response, Aaron, is there like a space, sort of like Singapore has carved a space or a name for itself in the, like this is perfect for Singapore. This must be placed in Singapore. Has that happened?
I would say, in addition to the risk, Ronak mentioned this as well. I think for the legal infrastructure, the arbitration center. These are things that I think Singapore are very, very good at. The political stability, the clear policy and very supportive monetary authority of Singapore. These are what gives more and more companies and talent and expertise the incentive and motivation to say, I think in a very risky world and in a growing Asia, this is where I want to set up. This is where I want to have those conversations. And so long as you bring people, people always say, insurance is very much of a people business.
Yeah, yes.
If people are here, the relationships, the expertise, the thought leadership is here. The decisions will be made in Singapore, and this will position Singapore very well in the future.
Ronak, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I have a couple of points on this. I completely agree with Aaron. I mean, a few things here. Firstly, I agree that it is not an or, it's an and thing. So Singapore and predominantly London. I think we have lesser perhaps to do with the Bermudan and the New York markets. So it's usually, and particularly when you look at specialty, it is really how Singapore can augment, or even how London can augment Singapore. When Singapore first started in its journey of specialty insurance, it was really carving out its base across Southeast Asia predominantly. And then it kind of really started to grow and expand out into broader Asia. It was supporting a little bit of the Middle Eastern market, a little bit of the African market as well. So you did see a lot of facultative reinsurance and a lot of treaty insurance coming into Singapore, and it's kind of grown on that basis. And in many instances, you would get London either complementing and adding on to, whether it was a capacity type discussion or whether it was a complexity type discussion. The base would start off here and then London would support. Now, of course, there are certain areas where, whether it is the evolution of parametric insurance, for example, where there is still a dearth of capacity, or rather there is actually, there's a demand for parametric, for example, to become a much more offered product here in Singapore for the benefit of the region. You are now also seeing, for example, in the world of renewables and green energy, things like carbon credit insurance, things like just the broader discussion about ESG, the whole concept of transitioning from not so clean to clean and how insurance can support that, Singapore starting to play a big part, in fact, being a hub for the entire region. Most jurisdictions, if there is any element of reinsurance required, it would most likely come back into Singapore.
Okay.
Across some of these products. Increasingly across large cyber placements as well. You are seeing that, the thought leadership and the experience and expertise that is sitting here, the time zone benefit that Singapore provides to most jurisdictions here in Asia. For that matter, if I expand it out to Asia Pacific and include Australia as well, Singapore is an increasingly pivotal part of the APAC region. So I would say, in terms of the complexity, in terms of the structure of large regional multinational programs as well, you tend to find that Singapore has now become probably top of mind in terms of if and how and when the placement can be made, with London augmenting it where required.
Not the other way around, like where like a small...
Increasingly, we are seeing, I just came back from a business trip last week to Japan, and almost every discussion went on the basis as, we really would like to place the business in Singapore.
Okay.
And that's simply because we feel that, whether it's the time zone, whether it is the speed of service.
I see.
And whether it is about the experience and expertise and the capacity that the Singapore market has now across pretty much bulk of requirements that are coming out of the Japanese market. So, it's very promising. And Japan is a very matured market. It's been around for a long time.
Yep.
So for the feedback to come across saying that actually where previously the first port of call used to be London,
okay.
Now it's coming to be Singapore. And by the way, if London can help, we would like to.
Okay.
It's a very pleasing thing to see.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's I think Ronak makes a good point. It's Japan, it's Korea, it's China. These are very large economies that have very complex risk placements. And coming to Singapore is also a form of diversification.
Okay,
of their
that's
risk
true.
placement.
That's true,
right?
yeah.
And I think Singapore is also got the talent, the resources, and the expertise and the relationships. You hear of Japan desks, the concept of Japanese underwriters and producers, brokers, consultants being based in Singapore to receive Japanese risk. And you see that with Korean desks. You see that now with Chinese desks. So, it isn't just a Singapore story, but it's really an Asian story that's happening in Singapore, which is really cool because it gives us so much opportunity to grow and expand, right? Because now we have very, deep multicultural contexts now.
That's true. Let's talk about the future of specialty risk. Now, looking ahead, the next 5 to 7 years, I think they seem less about entering uncharted territory, but more about, continuing to evolve, especially in financial lines. Now, what changes do you see, Aaron, just really shaping this phase that we're entering into? And is it maturing products? Are we going to see greater SME adoption, digital distribution? I think we've been talking about digital distribution for so long, but I think people talk about, again, it's a people business. People want to talk to, especially for these kind of complex risks, or AI. How is AI becoming central to how we underwrite and manage risk, Aaron?
I can't believe we waited so long to mention the AI word, because it seems to be
everywhere. Yes.
The most emerging frontier right now for us is, what does this industry do with AI? We've rolled out Copilot in our company, and we spent probably majority of this year really teaching, learning, experimenting on AI. Does anybody really know what AI is going to do for their businesses? I think there's a lot of headlines. Yeah. There's a lot of use cases, but anyone that has practically tried to apply this in the context of a regulated entity with regulated processes and procedures, it's not so easy. It's just turning on Copilot and away we go. So it's a huge mindset shift. Is it an opportunity for us? 100% it is. How do we execute it? What do you prioritize? What's the spend? What's the return? These are all questions that every board, every CEO, every leadership is going to have those conversations. And I think the users are going to have a huge say in this. So I think that's one of the areas that the industry is definitely having a lot of conversations on.
Ronak, what about you?
Yeah, I think
what's in your crystal ball, Ronak?
So what I'd really like to see, and this has been, and I'd use the word a pain point for a while, is having a little bit of harmonization across the region. Every country's got a slightly different approach to how they drive their various policies. This is not just about insurance, but across the board. So I think as a start, ASEAN firstly, we've got the bloc. It's the fifth largest economy in the world. You've got 600 million people. It's, a $3 trillion economy. Point being that coming together, getting the regulatory landscape to be a bit more aligned will allow not just specialty insurance, but embedded insurance, AI, how we kind of drive efficiency as well as growth, how we distribute our products and solutions into each of the countries, how we exchange ideas and best practices. It'll become a lot better. So firstly, that's one hope that I would like. And I think we're inching closer.
And I think they are, right? I believe in motor, we do see some harmonization of rules and policies.
Absolutely. So for example, the ASEAN Insurance Council, you have the regulators also come together once a year. And it is about trying to bring collaboration and best practices across, perhaps classes of business which would apply to each country, every country. So motor is one example, health is another. And it requires not just the trade organizations, not just the insurance organizations, but also the regulators to be able to be nimble enough, right? So that's one, seeing that. Number two, absolutely. I think AI, the data that we collect and the experience that we see from embedding AI into what we do, both internally and externally, I think I agree with Aaron. Will take at least, 18 months to 2 years or thereabouts for us to start seeing the effects of that. Similarly to what Aaron mentioned, we've already started to, in fact, we've test piloted a number of AI initiatives across individual classes of business. It's bite-sized, the whole underwriting experience, but at the same time augmented by the human, by the individual experienced underwriter. Now, what this means for workforce management is something that we will all have to collectively look at.
Yep.
But I think Singapore is very well primed to continue being the base for the specialty insurance play because, again, at the end of the day, you will need the experience and expertise of an underwriter and also similarly of a broker that is specialized to be able to seal the deal, if I use that phrase. Leading to that, AI will play a big part, but the closing of it, the negotiation, the discussions, the people side of it, I don't think is going to just suddenly disappear overnight. So AI is going to play a big part, but it will be interesting to see how and what kind of outcome that brings. The climate risk and climate resilience is going to be a big part in which Singapore, or rather it's going to be a part in which Singapore plays a big role. I mentioned earlier about carbon credit insurance. I mentioned earlier about Singapore wanting to even think about a risk pool in the world of climate change, in which, the government plays a big part, private sector plays a big part, but insurance then provides protection across the entire region for climate change. These are very in-depth discussions that still need to be had, but Singapore will probably play a very pivotal part in that space. And finally, I think if you look at, we can't escape the discussion about cyber. Right, the whole concept of intangible digital insurance. This is a very live, relevant discussion. You've got threat actors that are trying to target critical industries, as we've heard in Singapore on a daily basis. So it is something I feel that insurance has massive value to add. To just provide the right kind of solutions to be able to help businesses address this issue. So the crystal ball is very exciting for us. I think this is not a 5 to 7 year play. In fact, I think this is a 2 to 3 year play for us. And I think Singapore is going to absolutely be at the center of it.
Very good. Exciting times. Okay, we're great conversations. We're coming almost at the end. We're going to do a rapid fire round. Short and snappy, if you can. Okay, short and snappy, but really
we will try.
Think big, think bold. Okay, final reflections on Singapore's future as a specialty insurance leader. Okay, what's the most misunderstood aspect of Singapore's specialty insurance market? Who shall we start with? Who wants to go first? Aaron?
I think we should move away from this idea that we're a hub. I would rather say we're the innovation lab. We're leading those conversations. We're very close to these conversations in Asia. So maybe less of a lab, more of a center. And if you're really interested to see what MAS thinks of this, go and have a look at the financial services transformation roadmap that they have on the web. I think it gives a very clear indication as to how important insurance, specialty insurance fits in with the future outlook of the country.
Okay. Ronak, what do you think?
Very simple. We're, there's always this misconception that we're here to follow, that we're following some of the other bigger markets. Whilst they might be bigger, we are absolutely charting our own path. And we are going to continue leading the way for the region across Asia, especially for specialty risks.
Aaron, if you could change one policy to accelerate Singapore's global insurance ambitions, what would it be?
You mean make everyone attend Singapore College of Insurance?
Thank you for the plug, Aaron, but not required. But okay, thank you.
No, I would love. I say love. I would hope that we could create a national conversation about really having general insurance, specialty insurance, really embedded into some of the core curriculums in our educational institutions.
I agree. Yeah.
So whether you're interested in data, coding, history, literature, there is an insurance story to be told there and an opportunity for career. And so there is definitely a critical career conversation that one could have through some of these educational disciplines.
And I think building on your point, Aaron, that's precisely why I think we are going into polytechnics, to junior colleges. We're talking to teachers, we're talking to lecturers, really opening their eyes to insurance, risk, insurance, just building financial literacy, educating them, because I think it's so relevant to start early. Not, when I think university, I feel is a bit too late. Yeah. I think really starting early to think about it, because I think banks do that, right? Yeah. Teaching you about smart money habits. They start early. Yeah. Why can't we get people to start thinking about risk? Yeah. Start thinking about, how do I start accumulating wealth? Why can't I do this conversation early? That's what we're doing.
Back in the day, we used to have some of the polytechnics already used to have diplomas in risk management.
That's correct.
Right?
That's
I think we do need to bring some of these modules back in. So,
Ronak, yours. One policy change. What are your thoughts?
So I'll go back again to the ASEAN story. I do feel that we need to, and it's very live. It's very relevant with the broader global discussion on tariffs and what that means in terms of the policy shifts and trade shifts. I do feel that we need to fast track discussions across market access, particularly across ASEAN. I think the silver lining in this is that it won't just be an ASEAN discussion. I think there will be a much wider Asian discussion on how access to each other's markets is going to be improved on the back of what's been happening with North America. So all of this will probably lead to not unlocking scale, I feel, without compromising standards.
Okay. All right. Boldest specialty product, Aaron. What do you think will emerge from Singapore? Okay, 2, 3, 5 years?
Yeah. Maybe instead of boldest product, perhaps maybe pain points and processes. Okay. I think that as an industry, we could certainly do more to make the whole journey for customers easier in order to be able to get those products. And I think that that's something that the industry could certainly invest in and do more in.
Okay. Ronak, what about you?
So I'll go back to climate change. I would say that, and I wouldn't call it a product. I think we're going to have to approach the concept of resilience. So driving a solution approach towards resilience in addressing the whole issue of climate change, the insurance industry, along with the governments, are going to have to fast track this. And we might call it bold, but I think this is a necessity right now. I do believe we are behind the curve as an industry in addressing this particular gap at the moment. There are bits and bobs of products that are out there. So parametric's just one example. But I think, we need to think about verticals that cut across all industries. And as I mentioned, the concept of resilience, right? So it's a single word which has a very big meaning. And I think, whether it's, academia, whether it's government, whether it is the insurance industry itself, insurers and brokers, we're going to have to come together and think about how we drive a solution in this approach.
But there's been a lot of talk, right, Ronak, in this area. And I mean, we see, I think a policy for retiring of coal-fired power plants.
Yeah.
Are we still behind the curve?
I think what we're seeing right now is that different motivations that each country has.
Okay.
And they're all at different stages of their own
development, right? Yeah.
Most countries across Asia are still in that emerging phase. And as a result, their dependency on, at this stage, what would be seen as not so clean energy is delaying the whole concept of us, But at the same time, if I look at, say, financial institutions, they have been ahead of, and particularly the ones here in Singapore, they have been ahead of the curve in planting that flag to say that, you know what, I will support you in your journey to go from dirty to green or from dirty to clean. Whereas in other jurisdictions in the Western world, it's seen as a switch. Either you are or you're not. And if you are
no one's helping in the transition.
No one's helping you in that transition. So here, I do feel that the financial institutions, in particular the banks, have been a lot more forward thinking in that space. And I go back to what Aaron mentioned earlier. We need to be bold, brave, and we need to take some risks as an industry to be able to drive some of this change. And I feel in the world of climate change, we still have a way to go. So, yeah.
Okay.
It's another 1 hour discussion.
A separate one. Yeah. Okay. How can Singapore, Aaron, to you, right? How can Singapore's multicultural workforce unlock new types of risk solutions?
The insurance industry is quite simple, really. I mean, it's a combination of capital and people and their expertise that makes these decisions to move ahead. Capital is plentiful. It's also pretty vanilla, uniform. People are not. And so from a Singapore context, keeping a vibrant, multicultural workforce, open doors, anyone that wants to come here to contribute to the industry, to further, to educate, to share, to teach, to bring on talent, is really going to add to that Singapore insurance specialty story. Because really, when you really look at it, it is the people for the past 30, 40 years who have played a huge part to bring the industry to where it is right now. And I can't wait to see what's around the corner and who's going to bring what next. We've talked about cyber, we've talked about ESG, we've talked about AI. It is people with their ideas that come here that will actually implement and make those changes that will bring this industry forward.
Ronak, your
Spot
thoughts?
on. Couldn't say it any better, honestly. I think if you look at, we're a hotbed of people from around the world. And, this is agnostic to industry, but we're seen as Singapore Inc. And when you see ourselves as Singapore Inc. and everybody that is here in Singapore has a part to play. So it's not just about Singaporeans, it's about everyone. And if we are able to co-create together, building solutions with cultural nuances in mind, we will thrive a lot better. And so, the multicultural workforce is actually a huge strength of Singapore's. And many a times, unfortunately, people pick holes in it. But the reality is that if we band together and we understand the power that we can harness as a society, not just within our industry, but across the board, it's just going to be amazing for the region. Actually, it's not just about Singapore; it's about the region.
True, yeah, and that diversity is the strength, right? And we see that across ASEAN. Very true.
Yeah,
very true. Okay, can you believe it? Done. So, final thoughts.
So
Aaron?
do we do this all over again now?
No, what?
Take two?
No, take two. Final thoughts, Aaron. Final thoughts. Okay, or maybe if you had to pitch to someone out there, why did you, what made you stay in specialty insurance, and what do you love about it? And then I'll go to Ronak.
I think two things. The people that I was working with continuously inspired me when I was a very young broker, very young underwriter, gave me opportunities. They tolerated my stupidity. No, they encouraged me. They shared. They were very open, and they had a purpose. And I sort of shared in that purpose. So in that way, every day, every month was different. We talked about all those crises. We talked about the risk climate. I wake up every day and I don't know, what am I going to be looking at? What do I need to solve? And I think that gives you a sense of runway, a sense of opportunity, a sense of you have agency and purpose in what you do. And I just really, really enjoy working with the people, both in the company and also in the industry, which is why I'm sitting next to this guy.
Okay. So, Ronak,
I
what do you
completely
think?
echo that, Shalini. I think, the fact that things change and shift literally on a daily basis, in which we are then able to apply the fundamentals across specialty insurance towards how risk is covered, keeps us going. The fact that actually we can innovate a lot more also keeps us going, right?
Okay.
It's that challenge that we have as an industry where we do need to increase the speed of innovation. Hopefully it's helped and augmented by AI. The curiosity that comes through from the young talent that is out there, where we would like to mold. And it's a challenge that's been put to us even by our seniors, who we looked up to as well. I think these are some examples in which it keeps us going. I love the fact that we do have a very matured ecosystem that wants to continue to evolve here. I do love the fact that we've got a government and a regulator, as we've mentioned multiple times, who's keen to see this become an even more successful play. This is something that just gets us out of bed to really come into work every day and just keep it going, honestly.
Very good. But when you talk about how things would change, it's so fluid. Doesn't that also? That can also be stressful, right? Like, oh my God, what's this person going to tweet today that's going to move markets? And I'm going to isn't that also stressful? That much of change?
Maybe we're a little bit odd that way as underwriters.
You thrive under stress.
Yeah, because I think if every day was the same, we really wouldn't have much to do. So the very fact that risk exists, risk is increasing, we have a lot more to do and a lot more value, a lot more opportunity. And not that we wish it to be a very risky world, but, as Lee Kuan Yew said, take the world for what it is, not what you want it to be. And I think for us, what we can do is to make sure that we work with all of our partners in the ecosystem, from brokers to adjusters to claims to actuaries, to make sure that we're always providing and developing the best-in-class products and solutions to help people who wish to move capital reduce their risk.
And that takes a special breed of people, right? A special class, I would say.
Yeah, look, I to add on to what you were saying in terms of, Shalini, about, if people want to know about why they should come into this industry, if you're a student out there that's curious, works well with people, doesn't like a kind of a predetermined path on work and career, then this is the place you come, because you can apply your curiosity and your agency and your intelligence and your people skills and your intellectual skills to solve real world problems with other people. Yeah. And this is a very people orientated industry, very people oriented. And I know some graduates have also been asking, will AI take over these jobs? But not in this industry. I think people will have a lot more value to add in the risk story.
Very good. Thank you very much again, Ronak, Aaron. Thank you so much. Singapore's specialty insurance journey isn't just about numbers. I think, as Aaron has mentioned and Ronak has mentioned multiple times, it's also about people. It's about vision. It's about agility. and ecosystem leadership. And from the regulatory foresight to global talent, the city-state of Singapore has become a launchpad for complex risk innovation across Asia. Now, a big thank you to the dynamic Ronak and the fabulous Aaron for sharing such amazing insights. And to our audience, we hope you enjoyed today's episode of The Risk Factor and gained fresh insights into Singapore's backstory and its evolution as a specialty insurance leader. Now, if this conversation sparked ideas or questions, so we'd love to hear from you, and be sure to stay tuned for more episodes where we will continue to unveil and demystify trends and innovation and voices shaping the future of insurance across Asia. And until next time, thank you, Ronak, Aaron, and everybody. Thanks for watching. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.